Hello YouTubers. Well, this morning decided to replace my thermostat and also replace the water pump while I'm at it. The reason is I started all this was my vehicle overheated, and I made a video about it prior to this. And the reason why it overheated was my electric fan failed, and things aren't just what they used to be. Back in the day, you bought something, it would last for 20, 30 years before you had to replace it. And this is the second electric fan I've bought, and it didn't work out. It failed within a few months, probably 3 months. It failed, overheated my vehicle. I guess the hoses were weak or old, which I think were original, and one of the hoses busted and leaked all the coolant out. I don't have a temp gauge, so all I have is an idiot light, and the idiot light was on. But by then it was well overheated, well hot, and I had to pull over and kind of do like on the side of the road repair job. So I'm preparing the water pump and the thermostat for install. I was noticing the gasket for the thermostat housing is actually for a GMC truck. It says Charlie 20115 from Mal, I don't know, Mally, I don't know. Mal, I'll just say that. This is a Duralast water pump. I believe it's non-AC pump, or it doesn't have a fan clutch like some of the more modern ones do. You could buy it with a fan clutch and a pulley built in, I believe, and all you have to do is put your fan on. But for some reason this one doesn't have it. I don't know if it doesn't have power steering, or it originally didn't have air conditioning. There was aftermarket air conditioning that's on it now. And so it just has a pulley and a simple fan with no, just put it on. And if you touch it while it's spinning, it's going to hurt you. So anyways, I'm going to prep the surface, which is already clean. I'm just going to use some alcohol. I'm going to use a gasket, but I like to have the gasket pre-installed before I install it onto the engine. So I'm just going to tack it on with some sealer, same as for the thermostat housing. Tack the gasket on. Then when I let it dry, it's not going to be moving around on me when I set it onto the engine. And here's the thermostat. This is one I had replaced. It doesn't look bad. It's already a 160, which I didn't know. Which I'm replacing it with a fail-safe 160 thermostat. And I kind of like these and I kind of don't. Sometimes they just decide they're going to fail-safe themselves and just open up constantly. And then when winter comes around, you won't have any heat. So we just gotta be careful. It's like 30-something bucks. And it's kind of expensive. But it's a 160. Motor rad, fail-safe. But it could also save your butt. I'm just going to give you a tip real quick, and most of y'all probably know and have already done this a million times, and I'm just speaking to the choir or preaching to the choir, but just in case you haven't done this before, always make sure that this end here is facing the inside of the engine, towards the engine. You never want this, and you can't install it this way, towards a radiator hose or the radiator. You don't want it like that. What'll happen is this will never close, I believe, or it might never open. So actually it'll heat up and just stay closed on the opposite side. Or if the radiator water gets hot, it's going to open up and just not close. So you want this to constantly stay towards the engine. The engine block temperature is what's going to determine when this opens and closes. You don't want the radiator to determine when that opens and closes. Okay, so I've already started, like I said earlier, I took off the thermostat housing. Doesn't look too bad in there. About to take the old water pump off. And the whole reason why I'm doing this, my electric fan failed. And here's all the wiring and everything. And first started with this. Almost as soon as I installed it, this piece of junk here, it's adjustable. Adjust the temperature when it kicks on and off. This went bad. Almost as soon as second thing that went bad was a little temperature sensor that kicks the fan on, also went bad. Fuses were very cheap, and as you pull them off, I mean, I think this is one of them. The whole housing of the fuse comes off. It's just ridiculous. Very, very cheap stuff, but it was expensive. It was just this controller here, fan controller. See, look at that. The housing just came off, and the fuse itself stayed in. You know. So anyway, it's a bad fuse, but it was just cheap. And I did replace that. One of the other fuses popped as soon as it went on, so it means that the fan shorted out or something in the fan went bad. And that's that pretty much. Like I said, I'm gonna start pulling off this here. Already undid the belt or loosen the alternator up. While I'm here, I'm just gonna replace the water pump while I'm here. That's just, I think, the smart thing to do. It's cheap enough. Once I put the original fan back on, I'm not gonna want to worry about it. Here's the original fan, or the one that came with it, or the one that I took off. That it's got a little spacer. This pulley off. Okay. I like to put grease on them to hold it, to align it to. Especially when you're doing this by yourself, put a little bit of grease, put it against the water pump, seal this onto the water pump, and it'll keep it from turning. That way you can align the bolts a lot easier instead of trying to have to find the hole, you know. And it worked out for me, so should probably work out for you. And when you're done, you could always use brake cleaner, spray off the excess if it gets over or anything. Right, I'm using here is a 12 millimeter, and the other bolt sides, these smaller ones, are 10 millimeter, and these two larger ones are 12 millimeter. Put a little bit of torque on it. Just gonna take it easy. I hope not to break it into the engine. Oh man, it really doesn't feel good. It's not something you want happen. Happens with aluminum and iron or metal. It corrodes onto itself. Chemical reaction called galvanic corrosion. Now I'm afraid this thing's gonna snap. I really am. I might have to just stop what I'm doing. Yeah, it's really not feeling right. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright, I ran it in and out a few times, and I think I got it. Yeah, that was scary. That was very scary. Okay. So that's, yeah, I ended up having to run it in and out maybe to clean the threads out, but could have been just a sealant, but yeah, it was the sealant that was causing that. So be very careful, guys and gals. Last three. Got a little bit of rust and corrosion, it looks like. Yeah. I have my drip pan. Okay, this is a long bolt. Yeah, there's a short, it looks like. And another shorty. Okay, 10mm head on it. Feel it around, make sure there's not another one anywhere. Okay. There you are. Doesn't look bad. It really doesn't. But, like I said, while I'm here, I'm going to replace it. Like I said, I didn't notice anything circulating in the radiator, but better safe than sorry. It didn't overheat when the fan was on, and actually I ran it for 3 days with just without a fan on. I ran it, believe it or not, with the heater on, and it's been well over 100, 105 with the heater on. But you gotta do what you gotta do. I still have to work. This is my work vehicle. I need it. So I didn't have much of a choice. But Saturday morning, still kind of cool out here, so I just want to knock this out. But like I said, man, I'm doing this because I don't want to do it again. Hate to put my fan on, put the shroud back on, everything, pull the radiator off, all that stuff that I did for nothing, just to find out it's the fan is working, but now the water pump's not working or the thermostat is stuck. Just, you know, cheap assurance. Got everything. Okay, I've got everything hand tight. I just put sealant on the opposite side of the gasket to the block, and clean the bolts off really good, the threads. You definitely want to clean them off, and use an anti-seize. If you don't have an anti-seize, use like a bearing grease, something that'll be like high temp bearing grease, will not melt off. It'll be in the threads, that way if this happens again you won't have any issues and break a bolt off, iron bolt or steel bolt into a looks like an aluminum timing cover. And trust me, it happens. Every bolt I had on my Ford Explorer 96 with the GT40 heads and all that, everything on the timing cover broke. Every bolt snapped off. And I literally had to use a grinder and grind the aluminum off until I got to the shaft of the shank of the bolt, and cut around it. And that bolt was so deformed and molded into the aluminum, it was ridiculous. There was no way it was going to turn off. Once I got cut the timing cover off, the threads just bolted right out, you know, the iron block, you know. So, but it's very important to use some type of lubricant, you know, anti-seize, especially that, you know, or bearing grease is what I've used now, because I didn't have any anti-seize on me. But so far, very easy project. Highly recommend changing your pump if you're messing with anything in the front and you haven't done so in a while. And it's weird because it's got the weep hole in the top instead of the bottom. Here's the old pump. Let's see what it's got. It looks like it's on the bottom on this one, which is what it's supposed to be. And look, actually there's a little bit of water in there, so it might have been going bad, but who knows. Like I said, it's wise to just change it while you're here. Cheap security. So I'm going to tighten these up. I'm going to put the thermostat on the intake, and then start putting my radiator and hoses and all that back on. Okay, I put the thermostat in. If you notice, there's an offset. Goes towards more, instead of being on the center, it's towards the bottom. And the reason is, it's the thermostat housing is kind of offset itself. So I want to make sure that aligns to the actual thermostat and the thermostat housing. You don't want to get carried away here. You want to just get them started by hand first, finger tight, and then you just run them down a little bit. And from there you kind of use your calibrated elbow, go back and forth so it feels right. You can break out the torque specs if you want, but I'm pretty sure this is good. You just get the feel of it after a while. I recommend going over these bolts a few times while they sit. That gasket is going to compress a little bit and it's going to get loose on you, possibly leak. So when it goes through its heat cycle, you're probably going to want to go through all the bolts again. Once you put the pulley on this, it's going to be near impossible to get to the bolts. So do it now. I've already gone over this 3 times. They're not turning again anymore. So they're good. Don't over torque. Don't over torque. These are small. They'll break in a heartbeat. Yeah, I managed to get the fan on and put new bolts in it. They were a little longer, make sure they didn't hit before I tightened the belt up. So I'm going to put the radiator back on. I already changed the thermostat, changed the water pump. Just got to put the radiator hoses back in when I set the radiator in it. Make sure that you put the fan shroud in first before you set the radiator in. If not, it's going to be an issue. Once you set that radiator in, you can put it right on. Attach it right to the radiator, and the shroud will be like this. Back to the factory stuff, and I'm not putting the electric fan anymore. Just doesn't work. It's not worth it. Blow your engine up because you want an electric fan with stuff that's made in China. Doesn't last, man. Not at all. Alright, I finally completed burping the system now. Got fresh coolant in it. Fan's working. Back to the original stuff. Doesn't have a fan clutch. Checking for any leaks. I don't see nothing yet. Well, it turned out to be a fairly simple job until the end when things started breaking. The weld or the solder joint came undone on the radiator on both sides. One of the screws stripped and broke. Just stuff like that, man. It's expected of these old vehicles. When you start messing with the stuff, something's gonna break. Once again, thank you for liking and thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate that. I didn't know where I wanted this channel to go, and I think this is it. Little trucks and junkyards and parts and how-tos and things like that. I like everything. It's hard to just pick one thing, but we'll see how it goes. Hope you like it. Hope you subscribe. Once again, thank you.